Hey everybody, in this week's video I'm going to give you some tips for how to mix greens. I'm going to give you some ideas for how you can mix them to make them look a little bit more natural so that they're not so glaring and neon looking. So with that, let's get into it. Alright everybody, if you're new here, I'm Brian McCormick and this is Gallery Bry, and I make weekly videos on oil painting techniques, materials, and even art marketing. So if that's something that interests you, you want to improve your oil painting and you want to get better at art marketing, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss all the weekly videos. With that, let's go ahead and mix some greens. Okay everybody, let's go ahead and get started here. So in order to mix natural greens, we're going to need to use all these colors here. So I've got Cad Red, I've got Cad Yellow, I have Prussian Blue, which is not really a traditional blue that people use. A lot of people use ultramarine, but it's a really, really dark blue. I like it. And then I'm going to use Titanium White. And then stick around to the end of the video and I'll show you a little trick on how you can use yellow ochre and black to make a really good green. Now what I'm using here for materials, I'm using Princeton Catalyst. I really like their brushes. They're synthetic bristle brushes. They're very firm. And I'm using some walnut oil from Mgram just to thin the paint down as my medium. So it works pretty good and give it a try. So let's get started with the yellow. This is the traditional way that you mix green. You really just put some yellow down and you just put a little bit of blue down. And these are the only really two colors you need just to make a basic secondary color. And you can make it lighter, you can make it darker, depending on your taste. And you know, you can add a little bit of white in there just so that you can lighten up the mass tone a little bit. So the mass tone is, well, I guess the mass tone is just straight yellow and straight blue. But if you want to lighten it up a little bit just to get an idea and see what the green looks like, then you can use a little bit of Titanium White. So you can see it's a pretty bright green. It doesn't really look super natural. So what you want to do is put a little dot of red in there. And what'll happen is when you use a complementary color, which is basically the opposite color on the color wheel, so red is opposite green, when you use that color, it tones the color down. It actually moves it closer to gray. And when you do that, it makes it a little bit more of a natural green. So as you can kind of see here, it's kind of making it a little bit brownish, grayish a little bit, but it looks a little bit more natural. So there definitely are some neon greens in nature, but sometimes they don't always look that great in a painting. Sometimes you want to have it a little bit more of a gray, kind of a neutral color. If you look at some of the great master paintings, you'll definitely see that their greens aren't neon green. They don't look like a cadmium green. They're not very bright. They're actually kind of brown. So I guess this all comes down to like what your painting style is. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe that's not what you want your painting to look like. You want very bright saturated colors, then that's fine. You know, then you go ahead and go down that path. But if you want a green that looks a little bit more neutral and toned down, then you're going to want to go ahead and use a little bit of the red. So you can kind of see as we're progressing down here how it gets a little bit more kind of olive colored, and it's a little bit more of a toned down green. And then, you know, again, we can add a little bit of white and you can get a better idea of what's going on here with the color. You can see it a little bit better. It shows up a little better on camera. So, you know, it's kind of a minty green. You can see, I probably have a little bit more white in this one, but we can put some more white here. So it doesn't show up that great on camera, but definitely experiment with it, and you will definitely notice that if you add some red into your greens, it's going to tone them down and you're going to have a little bit more of a natural green. Now, you don't want to use too much because then you'll start shifting in the other direction. You'll start getting, more of a purple color, and it'll be more red than green. So you definitely want to be careful with it. But definitely using the red can help tone your colors down a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wipe down my brush. So whenever you're oil painting, a good way to make sure that you're always getting clean colors is to keep a clean brush. And you don't really have to do a ton of cleaning. Just a couple wipes like that will get most of the pigment out. And unless you're trying to do like a pure white or a pure yellow, you don't really need to get all of the pigment out. You can certainly play along with it. And sometimes having a little bit of a dirty brush can actually help get a little bit more color variety and interest in your colors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys a little trick on using just yellow, ochre, and black to make some natural greens. So this is kind of a part of what's known as the Zorn palette. So Andrew Zorn was a portrait painter, and he used basically just cad red, yellow ochre, ivory black. This is Mars black, and it's just does the same thing. It's just a little bit more potent, and that was his palette. And you can actually get a pretty decent green out of it. So I'm going to use a little bit of walnut oil here just to thin this down a little bit. And then we're going to get, okay, let's get a lot on here. Okay. So as you can see, yellow ochre is a much more toned down neutral color than the cad yellow. And you can do, black and cad yellow, but I do like the yellow ochre. And now we're going to add just a touch of the Mars black. And you only need a touch because it's super strong. As you can see, it already is knocking out all of that yellow. And then you can see it actually makes a pretty interesting green. It's more of an olive green. It's way more toned down than these here. You don't see it as much with the cad yellow and the red just because cad yellow is so strong. It keeps it a very vibrant looking green. Whereas this is almost kind of like a, I guess it could be like closer to a brown, but if you really look at it closely, it is still green. So we're going to add a little bit of the white here so you can see a little bit what's going on here. So maybe we need a little bit more black to really darken that up. And get some more yellow, and you really have to play around with it. And that's one of the things about mixing your own greens is that you really have infinite possibilities. And it's a lot easier to get the color that you're looking for than mixing it straight out of the tube. If you do it straight out of the tube, you're always going to get, the same thing. But when you mix your own greens, you can really kind of laser focus it. So it's a little bit more difficult to see on camera, but you can probably see here that, it's a very gray green. It's very, very, very toned down. And so, this can be used for, fall colors. This can be used for winter colors. And it's a very different green, and that's a good thing. You want to have variety. You might want to use this green for maybe some summer colors, but then maybe you want to use this for, a winter landscape, a farm that has a field that isn't really, green or in bloom. It's something that is gray and brown. So these can be really, really good colors to use in those situations. So again, It's a good way to mix your greens. You can use a little bit of red and tone it down this way, or you can try black and yellow ochre to get a little bit more of an olive gray green. I know it really doesn't look like a green, but you can kind of see there. It's a very, it's a little bit closer to this. Here, you can kind of see this is with the red and this is with the yellow ochre. And, it's a very useful color and you can use it for a lot of different situations. So give it a try and hopefully it'll work out well for you guys. All right, everybody, hopefully that was a helpful tip for you. If it was, please do me a favor and give this video a like if you got some benefit out of it. Also, too, I want to hear from you. This is your chance to give me your suggestions on how you mix your greens and tips that you have. Really love to hear from you. If you have some good ideas, make sure you leave them down in the comments. Definitely want to hear from you. And if you want to see more videos, if you want to see more weekly videos on oil painting techniques, materials, and even art marketing, make sure you stop back every week. So make sure you subscribe, hit that notification button, and we'll see you next week.